We'll be getting brush as we can. Also, there have been a couple of requests. One request has been for a new sidewalk installation over by Hazlitt's in the area where the new brewery is going. It is roughly a couple 100 feet, give or take a little. And it is on the edge of West Ave. They have provided some pictures and sketch and drawing and whatnot, which I think Mayor Shank is handing out right now. I've done some preliminary work, and we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 in material costs, probably. You know, obviously there's labor expenses, but the out-of-pocket material cost is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000, and I'm sure that that can be chipsable. So, because you're able to use CHIPS money for sidewalks along your streets.
So, Dave, is this an appropriate time for me to chime in?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, so yeah, I visited the site with David and spoke with folks that are building the brewery. It's going to be a really nice place, by the way. And looking at the area where they'd like to have this sidewalk placed, it's already a pedestrian path. In fact, it has red cat footprints indicating that it's a pedestrian path. So there are a couple of concerns that I think make this a viable thing to do. When they do in fact open, foot traffic is naturally going to increase right in that exact area. West Avenue is a village street. And the street actually pitches toward the building. And I've been made aware that when there's heavy rains, that runoff actually goes into that building. So the placement of the sidewalk pitched in the appropriate direction would help alleviate that. So those are really the two concerns. And again, this is not a fiefdom. I don't get to make all those decisions, but I'd like the board to know that I favor it for those reasons. I think it's beneficial to the foot traffic and will help alleviate a water problem at the same time. The other upside, as David mentioned, that is a project that can be done through CHIPS funding, so it does not affect our budget on the face of it. It's money in, money out. We get reimbursed for that work by the state. So I sure would like to hear any concerns with the board. Is this the time you want to hear from the board, David?
Yeah.
Where does it go from the parking area there up to the entrance to engine 14? Where does it start?
It's actually from Lake Niagara Lane. As you start approaching that building, it's right where the walking path begins, and I'm not sure that this sketch shows where Lake Niagara Lane is. Probably the photo shows it better. Actually, it's just in front of this head wall.
Yeah.
Right where the walking path starts. And it goes, they plan on moving the entrance door, which is not really visible in the photo.
Yeah, the water is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, the entrance door from where it's sitting now is going to move down one or two windows. And the interesting part is that entrance door now is about 2.5 feet above grade. But when they move the door down, the entrance door will actually be at grade, allowing them to have disabled access.
Nice.
So that's another beneficial piece of the overall project. That's something that they're taking care of. Naturally, we would grade that sidewalk for ADA compliance, so people can get in and out.
Sounds like a good plan to me, especially because CHIPS covers it.
I agree.
Sounds good to me too.
Do you need a motion to approve that?
Yeah, unless there's any further questions. Actually, I do want to add one thing. Because this is leased space, the brewery folks, are not the owners of the building, it's Hazlitt. I would ask for somebody to move to approve that with a couple of caveats. One being that, the village is held harmless, with regard to any damage to the building because the sidewalk will abut the building. So at any point in the future, if somebody says, hey, you put the sidewalk there and it caused this problem, we don't want to get into that situation. Secondly, I would like to also add a caveat that if we do entertain this and put the sidewalk there, that it would be up to the business owner or the building owner and or their tenant to maintain it. And here's why I say that. The next closest sidewalk is about 2.5 to 3 blocks away. So for us to truck equipment up there for 100 feet of sidewalk is a little bit high of an ask. And I think it's a reasonable request for putting in that sidewalk. How's the board feel about that? So we'll have to engage Hazlitt because they do own the building.
I'll make a motion to proceed with the caveat.
We have a motion on the floor. Would somebody like to second?
I'll second that motion.
Made, seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And motion carried. Thank you. David, I don't see them present on the live feed. So do you have their contact info?
Yeah, I told them that I would stop down tomorrow and speak to them about how tonight's meeting went.
Great, and then we'll engage safety here, and we need to do what we have to do to prevent an avoidable tragedy. So we have some speed bumps. We can have discussion about getting more if they're needed. We have a couple of areas that get them annually now. David, I think, and here's my opinion on the situation. First of all, I think it's a little bit early. We're still not entirely sure that we can put the snow equipment away yet.
Right, yeah, there's a potential for snow this coming Saturday morning.
So it still would be a little bit, month of May maybe. And secondly, I guess we have to also try to parse this with what road restoration is taking place and when. Where there's full-on street restoration and the timing works, I guess they could go in and then come out when the restoration happens. Where there's partial restoration, again, it's about timing. So I guess my opinion would be that we leave it to you for the scheduling of how and when we put those in, and try to avoid putting them in, taking them out, putting them in again.
Right.
But whatever seems to be most feasible to do. But that's again, that's my opinion. How's the board feel about addressing the Sprague Street issue? I think we've always addressed these issues as they come up anyway. And there are always going to be, it's about a 50-50. Once you put it in speed bumps, there are going to be a number of neighbors that complain that they're there. But in the interest of public safety, I think we've generally sided on the side of creating a more safe environment over an inconvenience.
What do you think we're gonna put on this?
2 is probably adequate. You can't build speed on a short street like that in between a couple of speed bumps. So
Where else do we generally put them?
they go on Weld Street. There's about 10 toddlers that live on Weld Street. They go on Vine Street because it's a major walking path, and there are children on that street. Those are the only ones that I recall at the moment. Is that correct, David?
Those are the only ones we're currently doing, the ones you just mentioned.
We do them by request.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so far, it's not like an analytical process, it's a request process.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Again, I mean, they're generally requested for a reason. And that's because of the pedestrian and or bicycle traffic versus vehicular traffic that could slow down.
And we just got a bunch of these up at the garage, up at the barn, just.
We have enough to accommodate right now all requests, right, David?
Yes, we have an old set, which there's nothing wrong with, that at one point in time were on Academy Street, which are no longer needed there. And that one set as a minimum could go to Sprague Street without any purchase of anything. And we may have one more set on the shelf, but I can't be 100% certain of that.
Yeah, I think we do, David. I think we bought another set a year or so ago, or 2 years maybe, that didn't end up getting used.
Okay. Places on Main Street, I'd like.
Yeah.
No concerns there.
I hear you. Any other concerns from the board? Okay, I don't think we need a motion or anything. This is literally an executive decision to put them in or not.
Is there a quantity that the board would feel comfortable on Sprague Street?
Well, here's the thing. I think we're all gonna have an opinion here. My opinion would be 2 is quite adequate, but you're the street guy, David, and we kind of lean to you to figure out what is adequate. It's a pretty short stretch.
Yes.
And you've got quite a curve at one end of it.
Yes.
So you've got a Main Street intersection and a very sharp curve. Anything more than 2 seems really excessive, but
Yeah, I mean, I think we get other residential concerns if we put one too.
sure. Well, excessive.
Excessive.
They call it excessive. So we need to strike a balance, a convenience balance and a safety balance.
All right, I will speak to the homeowner and we will come to an understanding amongst us of how we can make things better over there.
2 speed bumps in that street split into thirds. It's very short stretches between intersections or bumps. It's pretty short with 2.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it might roll though. Yeah. Okay.
All right. What was the?
We did sidewalk and speed bumps.
Yes. And I had another thing right on the tip of my tongue. I'm not 25 anymore.
No,
Oh,
right now it shows.
yeah, it wasn't a huge deal, but it was. Yeah. So I just would like to personally thank the fire department.
Thank you.
They came out on their night, their practice night or drill night or whatever it's referred to, and they washed down all of the sidewalks on Main Street and got all the winter grime and dirt and everything off of them. It was, in my opinion, terrific. It saved a lot of noise. In the past, we've gotten complaints of doing it at 3 a.m. with blowers and power stuff and waking people up, and it didn't do as good a job as the firemen did. They did an outstanding job, and I'm very grateful for the service they provided. Really looks nice.
Yes, and I echo your thank you to the fire chief and all of the volunteers for using that as part of their training exercise. Everybody wins. I do want to add one concern in that regard. It's just a sideline concern, and it has to do with the pitch of a sidewalk on North Main Street, where water already tends to run into a commercial structure. It occurred when that happened. I talked to the building owner, but with that in mind, you know which one I'm talking about, right, David?
Yes, I do. And in fact,
let's try to focus on what we might do about that sidewalk pitch as well, so we can. avoid
Yes.
that. Okay.
We were waiting. I wasn't entirely sure. We were gonna possibly tackle that section of sidewalk last year. But I waited to make sure the sewer people weren't gonna just tear it up anyway.
Yep.
They are not. So this summer we can remove that section of sidewalk in question, pitch it the other way, and we'll have that done before we get into our next phase of replacing the bricks down through there.
Okay. Perfect. That'd be awesome. And I fell on that sword, and it was all just fine. So, all right.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, other than that, we're the sewer plant is moving along good. The water is all moving along pretty good. And it just, as I mentioned, it's very busy with the stakeouts for all the excavating and digging that happens every day throughout the village. But in the end, it's all worth it, and eventually that'll calm down. So,
Great.
any questions?
Anybody got anything for Dave?
No, thank you.
All right. Are you gonna take off, David?
Yeah, unless there's something else later on down the road, I'll stay for it. But if not, yeah, I'll take off.
I think we're good. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
All right. Let's move on. Let's go to zoning code enforcement. Trustee Cardinelli, are you in receipt of Frank's monthly report?
I sure am. Yep. He's been pretty busy. The thing that made me the happiest was there were no non-compliant face mask business owners. There was nothing. There were no, what are those called? There's a word.
Complaints. Yeah.
Yeah. So the pause complaints, correct. So there were none of those. There's some building renovations going on in the village, which makes me happy because prices are so crazy. So there are some roofs and different things. Not new construction, but renovating things and taking care of things, which is great. And he's had a lot of phone calls and he's kept very busy. I appreciate Frank's work. And so that's about it.
Great. Awesome. Anybody have any questions regarding zoning code enforcement?
Yeah, is there anything that can be done with the house that burnt on Weldon, Maine?
Yeah, actually, I brought that up with Frank the other day. Apparently, that's still an issue with the insurance company. But at some point, I think I understand why you're asking the question. Something needs to be done with that. It's an attractive nuisance. I'm afraid somebody's gonna go in there. And it's very unsafe, at least in my opinion. Is that where your question was going, Tom? I think I lost you, Tom. You're on mute right now.
No.
There you go.
Yeah, I was trying to unmute myself. Yes, that's exactly where I was going.
Yeah,
It's an eyesore and it looks dangerous. Kids get in there. Yep.
I will address it again tomorrow and even probably try to reach out to whomever happens to have control of whatever that situation is, because it can't stay like that. Agreed.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Tom, is that
All right, let's move on. Wastewater treatment. Is everybody in receipt of the monthly report for waste treatment? All right, I just want to add a couple of things to that. There's no point in me reviewing everything that's already been written down. A couple of points you might have noticed mention of a DEC inspection, review, and report. We do have some action items to address at the waste treatment plant. Nothing critical, so that's all good news. But we are approaching the point at which we need to do seasonal reporting, more stringent reporting. And it came to light that we were not immediately set up for phosphorus removal, which is one of our seasonal requirements. We have most of that infrastructure in place. We were simply lacking the pump and testing to try to figure out which method of phosphorus treatment was best. Slack Chemical was actually there today to address that issue. We've identified the best treatment process, and I can't remember which process is bad for UV, but that was identified, and the appropriate treatment process initiated. So we'll have our treatment media for phosphorus arriving soon, as well as the pump with basically a flow gate or a flow meter attached to it. The rest of the infrastructure to get it into the mixture is already in place, so it's quite a simple pump setup. And regarding the rest of the project, I have every confidence, quite honestly, that the majority of the infrastructure, the collection system, will be completed in about 2 months, with perhaps most connections done also in the same time frame. And that would be known in the contract world as substantial completion. That's really good news. We will spend some more time during the summer on final restoration projects. Those require a bit of attention. They have already begun, which is good news. I think everybody might be seeing lawn restorations taking place, topsoil and seeding. You'll soon see sidewalks being replaced. That's in the works right now. So that's about all I have to add. I generally give everybody also a rough idea of where the project budget stands, and that stands at roughly $850,000 over, or under, excuse me, really bad term, under budget as of today. So again, that contingent amount is for those unforeseen items. And the better we do on that, the better off everybody in the whole project is. So we're in very, very, very good shape. I have no concerns there. Any concerns from the board?
None.
Okay.
Done here.
All right, let's move on. Capital water projects. Tom, apologies, I did not get you a monthly on that. I dropped the ball on that occasionally. However, the overall project is really close to 90% at this point. The north end mains just got charged yesterday. So that part is complete, with the exception of the lateral connections off of them. We had to charge it and test it and get through all of that. That required, I'm sure this board's already aware, required us to shut down water on that part of Main Street for many hours, about 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But our residents along that area were notified well in advance. I don't think we received one call, did we, Megan? About one after it was actually back up. Yes. Wondering when it was going to be on. So everybody was pretty well informed. That project also is substantially under budget. This being said, I think I brought this question up with the board in the past. There is a street crossing at Mark Circle. And I bring this up because the town has as part of their project, a new water main on East Hill. We found out several months back that the water main that they were connecting to was too small to provide water protection to that area of the town's project. And we batted back and forth the cost of potentially extending that water main with a 6-inch water main, capable of providing fire protection. But that main would have been within the village limits. And early on, everybody assumed this to be, well, this must be the village's responsibility. So after much thought and much number crunching, among other things, I eventually determined that it did not make sense for the village to pay for that part of the project if it were to proceed out of the village's project budget. And here's why. We never would have done it prior because it literally, the connection serves part of the town project. Secondly, the town's budget, construction budget is also coming in substantially under. And I'd like to remind this board that at the beginning of the project, the village assumed greater portions of the overall project in order to have a joint project that was affordable to both entities. So again, at the end of the day, it really doesn't fit in the scope of what the village project was all about. Secondly, if there is any funding left over after the projects are complete, or as the projects are nearing completion, you typically need to find a way to spend those funds, or you wind up losing some of the benefit from it. It doesn't change your user cost based on the project, but if you start having to give back funds, then it does change your user cost in a negative way. And the town's project, they would have difficulty finding infrastructure that they would literally be able to legally fund, because most of the backbone infrastructure, the vast majority of it, in fact, belongs to the village. So in my way of thinking, I wanted to conserve the village's project budget because there are so many other things that we can spend the excess funding on that benefit everybody from a user cost standpoint. Anything that we do that improves the effectiveness and efficiency of the water infrastructure, which again is 99% village owned, benefits everybody, benefits all users. So I'm sorry for this huge amount of information all at once. At the end of the day, and after several discussions with the engineers, with the town supervisor, with the town council, and our funding partners, it was determined that the town would take on that crossing, thereby preserving the village's contingency to spend funds that benefit all, because we have the authority to do so. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that's water in a nutshell. Any questions or concerns from the board? Nothing? Nobody? Did I put everyone to sleep? Probably. All right.
You explained it thoroughly enough, it doesn't have questions.
All right, thank you. Shall we move on? Buildings and grounds, Trustee Cardinelli, anything new, exciting, any great new ideas? What do we got going on?
I've got nothing new except that the lilac tree in Perriello Park is so huge. I just feel like it should bloom and blossom and be enjoyed before I make any catastrophic moves. I did speak with the Historical Society. They did, the village guys did move the rock, which was the Sandy Cooper Memorial, along with the lilac tree, is why I'm pairing them. The
Yep.
rock with the plaque on it has already been moved to Flory Park. And I spoke with them about shoots from a lilac tree, something from the lilac, and they said, no. They have no room for that lilac. They have other plantings and they don't really want something to overtake that tiny Flory Park. So we had a little discussion, which was happy. And I just feel like that lilac should be allowed to bloom and be beautiful, because I pretty much would be the stupidest person in the world to do something with it before it blooms.
Yeah, and it may, Mana, I was over there, and I'll explain a little bit further here momentarily. I was over there with Rick Constantino the other day.
Yeah.
And we were looking at that tree, and I think we all agree that it's beautiful. And once it blooms, it turns into greenery. All right, and it's not really in the way.
Oh, goody.
So I think that tree should be preserved in place, honestly. Moving it is problematic because it could be damaged. It can be spaded out and moved, but at the end of the day, does it need to? And that's really the question. I'm not sure.
Oh.
How do you feel about that?
I'm happy with that. I'm happier. I think it would ruffle more feathers to do something, especially if it's not necessary.
Yeah.
You know,
you can
we
stay.
want to make that place a green space, a place where people can sit in the shade or whatever, you know, a couple picnic tables so people could have a place to stop and enjoy whatever food they've gotten from whatever restaurant, as well as the stage idea. I just think it's still, there's a lot of potential there.
So since you brought that up, can I trample on your
No, trample away, trample.
Okay. So I brought up the idea that the fact that I was over there with Rick Constantino the other day. And he's got some really awesome ideas and some backing for this. He's all about also generating music in that park, which I think is a really, really fantastic idea, especially because his shop is 100 feet away, right? So he's actually got people lined up that would literally engage in a busking type activity there at least once a month. Even random things, I don't think it's such a bad thing. So I talked to him about the thought process of putting a small busking stage there, and we both agreed that somehow forming it so it's not, so it doesn't intrude on the tree is very, very doable. So that's that stands, and there's a lot of heavy interest for music in the park, which I think is just an awesome thing. It grabs people's attention as they're walking by, and that can't be bad. What's that? I missed what you said.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
That's okay. I missed what you said. So there's a lot of interest in music in that park, and Rick is taking it by the horns. Anybody have an issue with that?
I'm happy with that because he was the one who would have helped us with sound and that kind of stuff anyways, because there already is electric there. So yeah, perfect. Thank you, Rick. Yay.
So, so we should proceed with trying to figure out what to do with some sort of busking stage that fits that area, preserves the beauty of the tree, so on and so forth. We can do that. We can certainly do that without a problem. We can make that work. Sound good?
And something that, and something that's very open with like a metal, just a lean-to roof in case it sprinkled on somebody, they wouldn't get wet, but nothing that people could like hide in or live in, you know, like no.
Yeah, no, it's got to be super open with some
super open
overhead shelter.
Yeah.
It has to look nice. And
exactly.
We'll figure.
Perfect.
We've got a lot of talent in this community. We'll figure it out. But
Nice.
Move forward. Everybody agree?
Yes, that was good.
All right. Great. What else?
I got nothing else with building grounds. Nobody's asked me to paint anything, fix a window, nothing. I mean, you know, on any of the village properties or anything. I haven't heard a thing.
All right. Then let's move on. Public safety, trustee Freppier, you're up.
Okay, we got the fire chief's report, month to date, 24, year to date, 56. Fully staffed, equipment's running well. A couple of things going on down there is he's got to order some more updates and turnout coats for some people. And they're also looking into update their computer system. He's talking to some people how they can either update what they got or look into something new. So,
Okay.
looking at that. That's it for the fire department.
Okay.
Nothing going on with the crossing guards. Everything's fine, right? No issues going on there. Everything's fine.
Yeah, they'll all be done again here, what, in about a month and a half?
Yep.
How about the youths?
On the youth, we got a request.
Yay!
Now the request facility use application for what, insurance, right, mostly?
Yep.
Maples Youth Baseball and Softball. They want to have it down at the town park, which we would have to, they would have to get that blessing. But like we talked, we can approve it here, and if the town doesn't, it's a moot point anyway.
Okay.
But they want youth baseball and softball. They figure 30 to 100 people. The Naples Community Park. This is, let's see, Michelle Webb. They're gonna have a lot of people helping. They will be charging depending on what they have. Between 50 and 65 uniforms, equipments and everything. So they're trying to get this thing up and running and get the kids back in.
I believe they've submitted an application to the town. I don't know if it was prior to their last meeting or not.
No, they just did, she did everything today, and she's filling out the New York Forward template
Yep.
for low risk outdoor activity. That is what baseball and softball are considered.
So last year, this, I don't even think we got a request because most of those activities were a moot point this time last year. But they're all doable now. So if the board is so pleased, would somebody like to offer a motion to sponsor that program for insurance purposes?
I'll happily make a motion to sponsor youth sports again.
I'll second that.
Made, seconded. Any further discussion?
Should they give us a copy of their COVID plan?
They
We'll
do.
it, yeah.
Yeah, they do. That's
Okay,
part of the requirement.
yep, okay,
Thank you.
that's it.
So the motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion?
None here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carrie, thank you. All right, is that all you have for us at the moment,
That
sir?
is, thank you very much.
Okay, shall we move on? Business and community development. What's new and exciting, trustee Sullivan?
One interesting thing that's coming up, that the Economic Development Coalition, branded as Explore Naples, New York, is working on, is an event, May 22nd and 23rd, called Swing in the Spring. And it follows along the theme. You know, there's a fall event called Harvest Days. There was the winter event called Winter Wonderland, and this is the spring event called Swing in the Spring. So the theme, I mean, the concept is really that we'll have a set of seasonal weeks, but there'll be a sort of a pillar weekend where most of the events will occur. This one so far, there's a 5K, a 10K.
What's the date again?
May 22nd and 23rd. So the weekend before Memorial Day. And in the future, Swing in the Spring will occur earlier in the spring, but we just had Winter Wonderland, so you can't really do an event and do another event. So we're pushing it out a bit.
Okay.
There'll be a bunch of buskers as well. So Mary T's probably got some in the front yard. Maybe Perriello Park will be ready for some route.
If it's nice out, it's ready.
Right, exactly. So there'll be buskers at multiple venues, at wineries. Some of the breweries will be up and ready to go at that time. Things we'll do again, similar to Winter Wonderland or the scavenger hunt. The guided tours, I'm not sure if you guys saw the historic tour was a great success. I had a bunch of people wandering around town looking at all the village sites that the Naples Historical Society did. So that was a fantastic event. We'll do another one of those. So bring people from out of town, we'll promote it and see how it goes. Be the first Swing in the Spring. In the future, there'll be dances. You know, there's usually a few swing dances or, you know, I call them square dances, but up here they're called line dances, essentially.
Okay.
And we'll do some of those in the future, but we can't quite do those type of things yet until the future. So, yeah, it'll be fun.
Awesome. Anything that brings people and generates activity. I like to see them as mini fests, right? So,
Exactly what they are, yeah.
yeah,
People are ready to get out.
they are. Anything else?
No, that's all.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for your involvement with that. there's a lot going on, and I'm thankful for that whole group. Let's move on to attorney. Counselor.
Yes, sir.
I was just checking to see if you were.
Are we done fighting?
Oh, that was long ago. I get over it just as fast as I get out. All right. Why don't we have the discussion on the budget adoption first? There were no comments from the public regarding that. We've gotten no messages regarding it, nothing. So at this point, I guess I would ask the board if we are comfortable with moving forward with adoption of that budget.
Yeah, I am. Megan,
I
a form of that resolution somewhere had been reduced previously? Well, I
don't have it on me, but it will just.
I'll keep them busy.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
So no questions or concerns from anybody from the board regarding the adoption of the budget as it stands? Just as a refresher, as I was going over that, I'm sure that most everybody caught this. When I discussed the federal relief funds coming directly to the village, when I did a final run on the budget, I had a number that at that point, before I was aware of if or how much we'd receive in federal assistance. I plugged in what I termed to be magic money. And it was a substantially smaller amount than what I expected to receive. So I have not adjusted the budget, and here's why I haven't adjusted the budget. When those dollars come in, and the estimate that I had is quite accurate. It's roughly between $54,000 and $55,000. It comes in 2 tranches. I don't know when the first one hits. It will either hit just prior to the beginning of our new budget year, or right after. So there are a number of ways we can play that. And also by not plugging in the figure, I was also concerned that, hey, anything could happen. Secondly, we also have a revenue fund called other government revenues. So that is a fund that we can tuck whatever excess funds into. And we also have a contingency fund in our general account from which we can expend those funds or allocate them as we need. In essence, what I'm really saying is this makes that money much more liquid. So I left anything over the magic number that I plugged in, I left it alone because it leaves it liquid. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. It'll affect our budget to a very small degree, but that's going to wind up being a budget adjustment somewhere along the line. Makes sense to everyone? That's positive. Yeah, it is. It was helpful. I certainly breathed a lot easier when that occurred. It could have been, we could have been scrambling. We'd have come out of it, but at the end of the day, what that really means is we would have been borrowing money from other funds that we normally be authorized to do. And that just gets hinky when you're borrowing money from one fund to another that is normally not appropriate to do. You have to pay it back. You have to pay it back over a time frame. So it's almost the same as borrowing money, but with other things. You know, but it really messes with everything. So I'm glad we didn't have to do that. That would have been a last resort, but it would have happened. Okay.
Less is more.
So let's move on to the discussion about adoption of the budget. Again, are there any questions or concerns from the board as the budget's been drafted, provided to the public, advertised as such, and presented this evening?
Here.
All All right, David, will you lead us through this requires a supermajority, is that correct? Doesn't it?
I don't recall.
I believe.
We have a supermajority.
We do anyway.
Okay, so will you lead us through, this is a resolution, yes?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Well, that's good.
Whereas the Village of Naples is caused to be prepared a tentative budget for the fiscal year commencing June 1st, 2021. Whereas a public hearing to consider the tentative budget was noticed and held at the Village Hall Annex at 6 p.m. on April 14th, 2021. And whereas the village board has considered said tentative budget and comments and information received at said public hearing. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Naples that the tentative budget as presented at said public hearing be and the same hereby is adopted as the final budget of the Village of Naples for the fiscal year commencing June 1st, 2021 and ending May 31st, 2022.
Okay, questions or concerns of the board? Would somebody like to offer a motion to adopt the budget as read via resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Made and seconded. Megan, could you do roll call, please?
Okay.
Oh, again, any further discussion?
And who's making the motion?
Sean seconded. All right, hearing no further discussion, Megan, can you do roll call, please?
Sure. Trustee Cardinale,
Aye.
trustee Grappier,
Aye.
trustee Schwartz,
Aye.
trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Mayor Shane.
It's a resolution. Aye.
Thank you.
The budget for the Village of Naples financial year 2021-22 is hereby adopted. Thank you all.
Nice work.
Oh,
Thank you, Mayor.
that was one of the worst budgets to get through, and that was my ninth budget. The absolute worst one to get through, but we made it. Good stuff. Counselor, we should discuss a couple of things. One is the potential for property tax deferment, payment without penalty. If the board remembers last year, at the 11th hour, I was able to secure via executive order by the governor an extension of time to pay village tax without penalty. And that is the only way that was possible at that time. There is now legislation passed that allows us to do such extension, but it must be done via the passage of a local law. I've had several discussions with our clerk treasurer and village council in this regard. And it's certainly a very nice gesture to try to give give our residents a little bit of breathing room with regard to that. These things can be a little bit problematic to parse. Timing is really important. These things can affect cash flow. However, I think the consensus between our clerk treasurer and myself and village council is that it's appropriate to give roughly a 30-day extension. I think it's 28 or 29 days in total. That makes the most sense fiscally, and it also provides our village residents with some relief on being able to pay taxes without penalty. And we can do that through the passage of a local law, which I would propose that we do, but I'd like to hear from the board, hear what the board thinks. Nobody have any concerns? That time frame really doesn't potentially impact cash flow. If it's extended beyond that, by any means, it could potentially do that. The effect of doing this last year, I'm not sure what the psychology is behind it, but more people paid on time than ever before, even though we give an extension. But I think maybe it's a trigger. I think it's just a trigger. But again, we'd like the opportunity to offer that. Is there any questions or concerns from the board about that? Okay, Counselor, you have a local law in draft, right?
I do.
Was that distributed to the board?
No.
It's okay. It came in today.
Sorry.
So it's very short, so I'm gonna read it to the board.
Sorry about that.
Local law number 2, and this is in draft form. We do have to have a public hearing. If the board is so obliged to do this, we'd set that for next month. Local law number 2 of the year 2021 of the Village of Naples, a local law to provide for special deferments in the payment of village tax for the fiscal year 21-22 and during the COVID-19 state of emergency. The legislative authority for the adoption of this local law is found in section 1910 of the real property tax law of the state of New York. The village board finds that the state of emergency occasioned by the COVID-19 virus has the potential to cause significant financial harm to persons living in the village through loss of employment, lost business, reduced wages, or other factors to the extent that the village board deemed it to be advisable and proper to allow for the payment of the 2021-2022 village tax to be deferred for a relatively brief period of time as hereinafter set forth. Article 1. That the scheduled payment of the 2021-22 village tax together with late fees or penalties are hereby deferred until and including July 30th, 2021. Thereafter, the standard late payment fees or penalties shall apply to any unpaid village tax. Article 2, that this local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. Everybody understand that as drafted? So in essence, what is that, 29 days? June 1 to, no, actually,
No, it's July. I have to look at the calendar because it depends on when July 1st.
First day or two of July.
If it's on a weekend, then we push it off to the next Monday or whenever July 1st is. I don't have.
anyways, it's in the neighborhood of 30 days, 28 or 29 days, something like that. Just for everybody's reference, the final due date, July 30, 2021, is in fact a Friday. So it is a weekday. All right. So any further questions or concerns about that law or the potential of adopting a local law in that regard? All right. That being said, Council, do you want a motion to set a public hearing on this or just simply action of the board?
Yeah, motion is fine, just pick a date and then somebody offers a motion.
Okay.
The 19th of May, I think.
Is this just gonna be for this year?
Just this year, and thanks for asking that, Sarge. What we have to do is actually repeal that local law per statute. That's the way it's written.
That's the way it's written, and it's really odd. I mean,
I tried to convince council to enact and repeal all in one fell swoop, and he denied me.
I did, but
Shut me down.
you know, given the New York State Legislature, maybe not so odd. We picked the date. I mean, the local law that we're adopting applies only to 21-22 village tax.
Right.
So if we don't repeal it, the local law that's on the table now is not going to apply to the 22-23 tax.
It's not enforceable. However, the legislation actually dictates that you have to repeal it.
That's what it says.
Yes. So we need to repeal it after it's said and done. I have set a calendar date in order to repeal it. So it's, at the end of the day, at least it's not floating around on our books for no apparent reason. So that's a good reason to repeal it. All right. So what's the May 19th? Would somebody like to offer a motion to set a public hearing on local law number 2 of the year 2021 regarding the deferment of payment of village taxes without penalty.
I'll make that motion
Oh, and I didn't set a time, at 6 p.m.
at 6 PM. Okay.
Motion made, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Made and seconded, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Ty,
Great, thank you. All right, I'm gonna set this aside so I make sure that we calendar it. Council, I think we have one other thing for you. We need to discuss as a board, as we've already brought up a few times, the water re-levy issue. The village clerk treasurer and I attended a meeting with the county, what do you call it? County Finance Department and
It
attorney
was
and
actually real property.
Real
And
property.
Also,
real property department, county attorney, several clerks involved, a couple of mayors. This is really, this befuddles me. I am absolutely convinced that there are a number of folks that do not understand the service termination / levy legislation as it's written. The Ontario County at this point has made the statement. Go ahead.
Just to interrupt before you get too far into this. There are amendments to the public service law that are changing this whole procedure slightly.
There are.
Do you know, and that has been passed by the Senate and the Assembly, do you know if the governor has signed it
Is not.
yet? Okay.
Give me just a second. I will confirm that. It will alert on my phone if it did. I missed it. But give me just a moment. For all we know, the governor could veto any of those changes, but why it's set idle, I have no idea. As you stated, Counselor, it amends it slightly. Not to our advantage, but it amends it slightly.
That, by the way, we're talking about our amendments to the New York State Public Service Law.
Yeah.
Which generally does not apply to water systems operated by municipalities.
Right.
It applies mostly to utilities, electric utilities, and water utilities,
Water authorities.
which are privately owned and operated, and there are a number of them in the state.
This is the breakdown in understanding, and no matter how we try to explain it, it just doesn't seem to be getting through. So at the end of the day, the essence of this legislation is, A, you can't terminate somebody's water service during the COVID-19 state of emergency and or such dates set forth by the legislation. We all understand that. That's something we don't do anyway, because our reparation for that, or a way to address that, is re-levying water to the tax bills. The legislation does not state that you cannot. The legislation states that you can, with certain conditions, and certain notifications must take place. All of which we've done and actually continue to do. It's the county real property department's position that they will not re-levy village water to tax bills. For the board's information, it is my position that with regard to the village tax bill, the county's authority ends at this. They are equal to a printing service such as Staples. They print our tax bills. They cannot tell us what we can and cannot do with that. They can, however, refuse to re-levy our tax bills to the county and town tax bill if they contain what they deem inappropriate water levies. I get that. I'm fine with it. Go ahead.
I'm not sure that's entirely correct. It may be that the county would re-levy the base village tax and interest and penalties, but peel out and not include in the re-levy any unpaid water charges.
That's what I
That's
said.
what he means, yeah.
Yeah, I may not have been clear about that, but that's exactly what.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility.
So, that being said, it takes a little bit, and I have to apologize to our village clerk treasurer. This requires a little bit more work, because those things have to be tracked. Once she sets the re-levies, they disappear from the books. So it's gonna require human tracking of what those re-levies were and where they occurred. And I want the board to understand why it's important that we proceed even though the county protests. The law states that we have to do this, all right? This is the process. And again, it is our tax bill. It has nothing to do with the county. The county's only involvement in our tax bill is that they are our printing contractor. That's really it. What they do with it after that, if any of our village taxes get re-levied to their tax bill, that's where their authority really starts kicking in. So I urge this board to proceed as we normally would, even though Ontario County protests. And here's another really good reason why. The vast majority of our unpaid water rents are those who allow, those property owners who allow them to get re-levied because their escrow account and their mortgage pays for it. This is how they're used to doing it. This will create a significant burden on those folks if they get a double re-levy a year down the road, or even two, depending on how long this plays out. And that can put those folks in serious jeopardy. The other advantage of continuing is that 95, 6, 7% of these water levies on the village tax bill, in fact, get paid with the village tax bill and don't get re-levied. So we recoup most of that in our own tax collection. What I'm saying is the county has no authority to tell us we cannot put that on our own tax bill. They are the printer. If they refuse to do it, we're gonna have to figure out a way to do it ourselves. Because it's a nightmare scenario for us. It's $30,000 in outstanding water rates. That's a huge impact to our budget. That erases our gains plugged in from federal relief. So it does not further burden our public to proceed because the vast majority get paid with the tax bill, their levy. Does that make sense to everybody? I know that this is posturing. I get it. I'm very comfortable doing that. Counselor, you disagree that we are absolutely within our legal right to proceed as usual?
No, I don't disagree with that at all, and I think that's what the village must do, for a couple of reasons. First, we're required by, or Megan is required by state law to do these things, and so that's what she needs to do.
It doesn't, the legislation does not negate that obligation.
No, and it should be pointed out that as far as I know the village here, and I don't think any other village has received official notification from Ontario County that this is their position, that this is what they will do. And if a village tries to re-levy water, an unpaid water bill to the town and county tax, the county will not permit it. We've not been notified of that formally.
Mm-hmm.
This has been, I guess, a couple of opinion letters from Real Property Tax Services.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady who wrote the letter says she's consulted with the county attorney staff, but we haven't received official
definite notification from the county that this is the county's position and this is what the county will do.
And at the end of the, here's how the math works. At the end of the day, if they refuse to accept re-levies when the village tax bills get re-levied to county tax, if they have water re-levy attached, here's the difference. It might be about $3,000 versus 30. We will have already recouped the vast majority of it through our own tax collection. So we can suffer the 3,000 if that's the way it shakes out. But 30, that's an enormous impact on the water fund. The slides that I showed are as good as garbage if that occurs. Anybody have questions or concerns?
So what you're saying is that by them, if they didn't do this, if they kept doing the way it was, this is not putting any kind of burden on them other than no burden, right?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, all they do is print our tax
That's
bills.
what I'm saying. Why are they doing this?
Well, they don't have the authority to tell us we can't. It's our tax bills. They simply print them.
But what is their reasoning?
They
They're-
interpret the law,
They
the
interpret, yeah.
executive order or the, whatever, the moratorium that says we can't terminate water. They're interpreting it to say we cannot re-levy the water, and there's no,
Okay.
And actually, the new verbiage in the legislation that has not been signed actually does address re-levy. But it does not prohibit us from re-levying anything. It doesn't prohibit us from re-levying those who have been notified of an opportunity to have a payment agreement. We've done all these things. Those who are in arrears and subject to re-levy. There's a few other things. If that resident has not come forward and addressed that issue, they get re-levied. It gets re-levied.
Which we do anyway.
Which we do anyway. Which we do anyway. So this is, I mean, the legislation, on the face of it, the legislation is meant to protect the general public.
from
And-
termination.
And I get it, and I agree with it in essence. But if it extends to the point where it inhibits, say, a village water utility from their normal process of collection by re-levy, it creates a burden on that municipality's budget, and it creates a further burden down the road, a multiplied burden on that property owner. And someone who, I like to say things as they are because I've been in this position myself. If you're unable to pay your water consistently throughout the year and you don't have a different avenue such as
Escrow?
thank you, David, an escrow account attached to a mortgage, and you're having difficulty paying your taxes, that becomes a compounded issue. It could mean the difference. If it goes on for 2 years or 2 years plus, it can mean the difference between a family losing their house or keeping their house. It's a really bad position to put people in, and there was a little bit of lack of foresight there. I think it'll eventually shake out, but this is why, again, this is another reason why we need to be firm and take this position. I'm confident that we're absolutely within our right to do so. And if we temporarily lose, and the projection is about $3,000, because the county will refuse to re-levy anything with water re-levy attached to their own tax bill, so be it. Everybody can survive that. That's okay.
What are the other Ontario County villages doing?
Yes.
They're all just going, what? There was a serious lack of communication when this decision was made that didn't include any village.
Forgot to include them.
So let me just rephrase that or put it in perspective. Where is the vast majority of infrastructure located in any community? It's in a village or a city. Okay, So I'm sorry, and this is a fact. It was a serious lack of communication and a decision made without the appropriate stakeholders involved. So again, I know I look like I'm posturing, but I'm confident that I'm posturing for all the right reasons. Anybody have concerns? Counselor, do you want a motion to proceed in that fashion, or just general acknowledgement that the board agrees this is what we're doing?
We've had a discussion and
Does anybody object to doing this? And if so, why?
No, I mean, I, not at this point. I mean, I think it's one of these things where we revisit based on, let's see how the county does come back and what they do say officially. You know, they don't
Yeah.
say anything officially, paperwork, and maybe in May, we're having a different conversation, but. probably
I doubt
not.
it. I mean, well, if we're having a different conversation, what it is an overstep of authority. If we get notification timely, I would hope that they literally say, well, we're not even gonna print it on your tax bill, then we're gonna shift gears and we're gonna generate our own tax bills. Okay,
And that's the action we take in May.
I'm waiting for Megan to throw darts at me right now.
Well, the water bills, this write-off of the levy has to be completed before we do our next water billing, which will be in the next couple of weeks. That's why it's always done in April. Because the first water bill of the year is due June 1st, which is our new year. It goes out May 1st, and we have to have all of that old arrear water out.
Megan's taking care of this next week.
So that's why it has to be done in this fashion. And we generally, in a non-normal year, we present that levy to the board and then to Ontario County by May 1st. In order.
So they can print
put it
our
on their
bills.
tax bills. And everything's all different, and we've just had to kind of roll with it, and we'll just do the best we can at this point.
I hope we don't have to print our own bills.
what is the drop dead date for this, assuming we do?
Well, the drop dead date literally is we have to have the bills out June 1st. Right, Megan?
Yeah.
We have to address the levy next month, and we'll do that as a board.
Well,
Yes.
Who prints the bills and how much lead time do they
Ontario
need?
County, and they need lead time beginning in about a week.
May 1st, I have to get them my tax summary sheet that has our tax levy, our tax rate, state aid, and any levies on the property, which generally were water or lawn maintenance.
Well, suppose the county gets that information and the county says, we're going to peel out your water
Which is
levy.
what I am completely anticipating.
Well, if they say that, we're gonna come to a full stop, and we're going to have to generate our own tax bills and pull it
That's
back
what's
from
gonna
it.
happen, what you said, I believe. I did actually speak with another clerk this morning for a long time, early this morning. And I was like, am I confused? Am I thinking too much about this? Because the county's not going to be collecting water. Are they talking about when, in November, when we're done with our collection, when we turn it over to them, or they're saying they're not gonna collect water, which I understand that's their interpretation, that's their
Mhm.
tax warrant. This is ours. And she's understanding it the way that all the other clerks are understanding it, that real property, the county attorney,
I don't care, it's beyond
everyone
their
is
scope
saying
of
they
authority.
will not put that on their tax bills.
They are our staples for a tax bill. They are a printing service.
Well, would they go ahead then and print tax bills with the water relevy on them for village purposes? But then if the village tax didn't get paid,
That's what that's my question.
Right.
then we relevy, we send all that information
it's
to
a
the county
different-
for a
It's a
relevy.
different action.
Right,
And at that point, it seems to me, that's when the county would say,
Right,
right,
we're going to peel the water
Right.
levy out of that.
that's
And
what I was
we'll-
just trying to
and
say.
we will already have that. We will already know what it is. So again, that's when they have the authority to do it, not before.
Right.
It's a separate action.
We'll see what happens.
Well, again, we just need to be prepared to print our own tax bills. I hope it doesn't come to that. But if they refuse to print it, we can't charge it, and we must.
Say that again, please?
If they refuse to print it, then we're unable to charge it.
We're unable to charge what?
If they print our tax bills for us and there's no water levy on the tax bill, we would have to generate a separate bill to go along with the taxes.
Yeah, it has to be on the tax bill.
Would have to be on a tax bill though.
Okay.
It has to
so-
be on the tax bill, which is why we need to know pretty much as soon as we send it.
I
are
mean,
you gonna
state
print
law
it this way?
requires that that be done,
Yes,
Mhm.
that you tell the village board as of this particular date, what water bills haven't been paid. And then it's mandatory so far.
the law says that you have to do it, Megan. You'd be breaking the law if you didn't.
I'm not going to break the law.
I mean, here, do you see the conundrum here?
Mhm.
That's crazy.
So at the end of the day, we do need to be prepared to somehow generate our own tax bills. And unfortunately, that software is also a service of Ontario County, isn't it?
We have our own software
We do?
license agreements, but we have something with them. I'm
For
not-
the support?
They do all the support for it. They bring our tax load to us and load it. Like last year, they just emailed it to us and we were able to upload it, but they prepare all of that.
Okay,
It is a process I'm completely unfamiliar with, is how they get all of our information into the system, but it has to do with tax map IDs and.
Yeah.
probably
well, either
some
way, we need to be
spreadsheets.
prepared to print our own if it comes to it. If it's not printed on there, it's going to be a serious issue, not only for the water fund, but for these folks that typically allow that to go through their escrow. They're gonna get a whopping escrow a year from now, a major wallop.
That's currently what during the meeting that we had with Ontario County, they said they were going to add it to next year's. Like, yes, they'll levy it next year,
Now,
in
that's just-
addition to that levy.
That's ridiculous. The burden that will create on people will lose their houses over that. It's craziness. Okay, so we're all in agreement?
Sure.
Okay. Any other wonderful legalese for us this evening,
No.
Counselor? Great.
Wasn't that enough?
Yeah, that was more than enough. Megan, you got anything new for us, new and exciting? You want to talk about summer rec?
Sure. We talked to Matt Crane and Chad Hunt on Monday, the mayor and I, just to start, we started the conversation like in emails about summer recreation, and Katie Matthews is going to be meeting with Chad Hunt. Katie is our summer recreation coordinator. She's going to meet with Chad Hunt and Greg Parzak next week on the 20th, actually, because they have all their New York Forward templates done for every activity that's done at the school already. And rather than her reinventing, they're gonna help her fill those out so that she has the proper protocols and everything. So that when we do submit our facility use request to the school board, we'll have all of these plans in place that they're gonna need. And hopefully, she's, clearly there's things they won't be able to do anymore, but they're gonna work with her, including like even for arts and crafts, like kids have to have their own stuff that they use, things like that. But they're gonna work with her next week to help hopefully get some plan in place. And she's coming in Friday morning early to talk to me about some of her ideas of how to change it. They're gonna try to do most things outside pretty much, but.
So at the end of the day, we have an avenue to proceed with summer rec.
And we budgeted for it.
And we're trying to shake it out, which is gonna be good news to everybody if we can get this shook out.
A little shorter, a little later than normal, but
Yeah, but we have some time.
we'll do what we can. So
All good news, good stuff.
I hope it works out.
And the school district is very supportive
Mhm.
and helpful in this regard
Yeah,
too.
sitting down with her, taking their time to do
Yep.
that is saving her a lot of
They were,
headache because they know what they require. And
they
they're-
were quite helpful and very engaged and
Mhm.
excited to be a partner in this.
That's great.
We're actually training our water safety instructor. She has training in June, but we found training, which was really hard to find. She's like the one that leads all of the Red Cross swimming So she's gonna be trained regardless for the
Okay.
3 to 4 years. So. Yeah,
Cool.
okay.
Anything else?
I don't think so right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Let's move on. My report. Again, I get to talk even more. Great stuff. Comprehensive plan. I may have brought this up recently. I have also sent a notice to the planning board and attended a meeting with the town supervisor and town council in this regard. Our comprehensive plan is working on 6 years old, actually. It's time to update that plan. On the face of it, I think we still have a very good plan. However, some of those goals and objectives have already been completed or are underway.
Okay.
That's all good stuff. But the reason that we update this every 3 to 5 years is to make sure that we stay on track. So we need to do some edits, adjust our goals and objectives to recognize what's been complete, what's not, address things that should have further action or be ramped up in importance if they haven't been addressed. One of the other primary focuses of addressing the comprehensive plan update is to ensure that we're still on track with a community vision. A comprehensive plan is a living document. It's not meant to be written and adhered to strictly as written. It's meant to be fluid. And communities' goals and objectives and what their vision for the future is changes in that time frame. Sometimes dramatically, sometimes slightly. But we need to ensure that we're addressing, those are the key components to a comprehensive plan. What's our vision? How do we get there? Goals and objectives, and are we currently achieving this? What do we need to adjust? So I've had conversations with all of those entities, planning board, town board, had brief discussions with this board. Now I'm just diving into it a little deeper. I have offered to all of those entities, I have a template for updating this document. I've been through this ruling process a couple of times. But it's important that it gets done. I'm more than happy to lead a group in the update, not chair a group, but lead a group through the process. I've already got a volunteer from the town board, town council, to represent that government body. I expect that we'll get a volunteer from the planning board and zoning board. I'm hoping that we get a volunteer from this board to participate in that update. That covers all of our governmental concerns, but the vast majority of this group will be solicited from our pool of community stakeholders. And I avoided saying residents for a reason, because our community stakeholders can be village residents, town residents, they can be business owners, they can be property owners that aren't business owners, but are part-time residents, so all of our stakeholders. And that group can be as large as it needs to be. I would envision holding these sessions primarily via Zoom conference. It's very easy to share documents and do whiteboarding sessions. We're getting really good at this stuff. So I guess I'd like the board's thought on that. I would happily lead that group. But I guess I'm asking for the board's nod in pursuing that. I already have the town board's nod. I'll be speaking with the planning board next week.
Well, I'm certainly game, and I'd like to volunteer. I don't want to preclude anybody from volunteering if they want to, but I would be more
Great.
than volunteers, absolutely.
Awesome. 2 birds with 1 stone. Any other questions or concerns?
Down here.
So here's what I predict taking place. After I've had a chance to speak directly with the planning board, I'll be attending the meeting and reaching out to the ZBA, because again, I do want their participation, a representative. Jumping that in the planning board's lap, they've got enough going on, and it's an undertaking to expect a planning board to do on their own, which is why I prefer to do it this way. It was very successful, our update prior to this, soliciting members of our
2016, was it
2015.
2015?
So we're working on 6 years here.
I said that.
Yeah. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I've been waiting for one of those balls I have in the air to drop to the ground. It's time. So that's what I envision happening, and I will pursue that right after talking to the planning board, and then I will solicit those community stakeholders. I'm sure we'll get plenty of response. Questions or concerns? Great, and that's a joint plan, village and town, so just as a reminder. Comprehensive plan, curbside trash, I brought this up last week. These issues continue to occur, and I'm not talking about garbage necessarily as I am, sometimes people just start stacking things outside and they stay there for weeks at a time. We do need to work on some legislation to address those issues, because it continues, and we don't really have a good method to prevent that. Very quickly, marijuana legislation. Everybody's aware that it is now legal to possess up to 3 ounces of marijuana and be as high as you like. All of that said, just for everybody's reference, because I hear a lot of chatter, folks are making comments like, well, geez, you can grow up to 6 plants or 3 plants. And just for clarification, you cannot, please don't start growing weed in your garden or your backyard just yet. You have to wait until
You're paying close attention to it.
you've got to wait until the first nickel bag is sold over the counter. That's going to be about a year out. So please don't start growing, but you're now legal to smoke and possess up to 3 ounces.
Yeah, I know.
That being said, some really good things came out of this, at least good in my perception of things. The primary positive that came out of this legislation is that local control has been maintained, which means that the village, we have a say. We have a say in how, the where, the why. And opt out. We can individually opt out of having a dispensary or a retail operation or any of the above type operations within our community. The other positive that came out of that. So like, what I mean to say is, as a village, we have full control over that. The other positive is that there's a 13% excise tax attached to marijuana sales. I think something also applies to grow operations. With 9% going to the state, 4% going to the municipalities, and 1% going to the county. This is a really good formula, and it makes lots of sense. County legislators pushed hard against this because, of course, they wanted the larger share of that excise tax, but that thought process fails to recognize where the impact actually is. The impact is actually in those cities, towns, and villages. So I think it's a great piece of legislation in both those regards. With all of that said, I just would like to hear from the board. We have a couple of things that we need to consider at this point. A, does the board want to opt out, saying we don't want any of these operations in Naples? I'm going to throw my opinion out there. I don't think that's the right direction to go, but that's only my opinion. I'm one. And two, if so, we need to consider how this should be zoned. So the zoning question at that point. So why don't we try to address part A?
So Brian, if we want to opt out, that has to be done by referendum. It's a mandatory referendum.
Yes.
And I mean, if we opt out, that might drive other business foot traffic out of the village into a municipality that didn't opt out.
I'm certain of that, Tom. I fully agree. Sure. I fully agree. And
That's how we're looking at it at Penn.
yeah,
We want to drive it out. So we're gonna look at zoning.
yeah.
Control.
So, and done correctly, which is the zoning option, done correctly, I think it's quite manageable. And I've been following this legislation. I think I've started talking about it 2 years ago. So here we are. So I guess what I'd really like from the board right now is, are we prepared to answer question 1? Are there any members of the board that wish to opt out at this point? Everybody's pretty quiet. Okay.
I'm opted in.
So that being said, our avenue of pursuit now is to start talking about legislation. This is something, zoning legislation. This is something that I want to lean heavily on the planning board for. All right, so I will request to the planning board that they start studying the socioeconomics of it all. And what are we going to do? I will let them know that the board's preference is to look at how to do this rather than how not to do this. But
You're right.
put a lot of serious thought into how we're going to do this appropriately and most practically. The obvious questions come to mind. You don't want a retail operation anywhere near a school or anywhere near a church. Yeah, those things are really obvious. But we have to fine tune this if we're going to pursue that. And it's going to take us some time. Everybody on the same page with that?
Yeah. Have we received a deliverable from that body to date for a recommendation like this? Have they provided us their recommendation officially for anything in the past?
From
The planning board?
I don't think so.
no, but I have brought it up to them. I think last time I actually brought it up to them in a meeting was probably a year ago. And there was really no negative feedback. And we hadn't even reached this point of, holy cow, there's
You
legislation.
have to wait till this is done.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see their feedback.
I know.
okay.
There's also there's a presentation, there's a presentation tomorrow, I'm sure.
Nikon,
That
Yeah.
presentation about,
Yep,
I'm attending.
okay, good. I will try to see some of it, I think.
Yep, I've been following very closely, so I'll be attending that one. That's actually part of a policy committee that I'm on with Nikon, and we have these side discussions before those presentations happen. So we've been following that pretty closely.
Great.
All right, everybody good on that front for now? Awesome. So I just want to renew something and just ensure that there's no concern from the board. A year ago, just prior to COVID, the Historical Society approached us about having a curb cut in front of the Cleveland House, where their sidewalk is for ADA compliance, accessibility. And this board was in favor of pursuing that. I think I actually drafted something to the DOT and then we just kind of fell apart. COVID slammed us and the whole thing, everything went wayside.
I recall it, yeah.
So does everybody remember the curb cut discussion? They wanted ADA accessibility to the Cleveland House Museum. I'd like to, once again, renew that conversation with DOT. I think they seemed receptive to it, but again, when COVID hit, everything went awry. Any concern about that? I'd like to get
Nope.
that. Okay.
No concern.
And I will get right back on that again. Some more, what I think is, what I see as being good news. The DOT has lifted their restriction on highway permits concerning things like parades. We are in possession of a DOT permit. We do have it, right? Yeah. We're in possession of a DOT permit to host a Memorial Day parade.
Awesome.
I've started initial conversations with, I at least reached out to one of the members of the two veterans organizations. I am going to follow up with that. Here's some more positive news. our NCS band director, Phil Barreto, has been hoping something like this could happen, but school districts are under even more severe restrictions than almost anybody else. So the school has been awaiting guidance. That was part of our conversation surrounding summer rec that Megan and I and the superintendent and facilities administrator, is that his correct title? Yeah, that we had, and that subject came up, and the superintendent did in fact go to the band director, Mr. Barreto, and they had a brief conversation, and Phil's got this stuff down. He's prepared for anything. The guy's always prepared for anything. And at the end of that conversation, the superintendent told Mr. Barreto, Phil, if you think you can do it, you can do it safely, you got the green light. So it looks like we're gonna have some form of band. It's gonna be a little different. Phil did indicate, we had a conversation after that. He indicated that he's gonna have to spread some things out a little bit more. But it's doable. He's excited, and it's not gonna look like our normal parade, but hey, there was no parade last year. This year there's going to be one. It'll be a little bit different. But for all intents and purposes, it's time. The community will be jazzed about it. I will be keying in pretty heavily on public service types announcements to ensure that everybody still has safety in mind. You know, please don't group tightly together and try to do the masking and distancing thing as best as we can. Just keep that in the forefront of our minds. I'm sure we can do this safely. This whole community is really good about it. And actually, I want to make that statement. We have a number of folks watching us now. I want to thank our community for doing that, for doing the best we can to prevent this from becoming a worse situation than it could have been in our own community. We're not out of the woods yet. Please keep doing what you're doing. But yes, it appears as though we will have a parade on Memorial Day. That's all I have on that. I will be meeting with I'm trying to set up a meeting with the veterans. I'll bring in the fire chief as well, get everybody, and myself, Phil Barreto, fire chief, and the veterans. I'm gonna try to put that together so everyone is on the same page and let them do what they do as far as organizing. We'll take care of the public safety piece of it like we always do. And a conversation to make sure everybody's on the same page is always good. And it'll be as good as it ever was or better. And that's all on that. Anybody have concerns about the parade?
Nope.
One more thing. Sorry for my long-windedness as usual. Just wanted the board to be aware, beginning tomorrow, Megan and I will be interviewing for the position of deputy clerk. We can get a little bit of load off of Megan's shoulders. That would make me happy.
Have we got good interest?
We have good applicants. Yes, we do. We do. Yeah. So I'm excited to fill that position, and I hope this board understands. Megan is a rock star, and without help continues to be. So go ahead and blush. I don't care how it's there's a lot. There's more than most people recognize that has to go on in this office, and especially when we're weighed down with 3 capital projects on top of it all. So you know, just want to recognize all of her effort. It's so appreciated. We could be in much worse shape. So yeah.
What's the start date? What would be the start date?
ASAP.
Pretty much.
Pretty much, okay.
Yeah. We don't have a solid set start date, so I think what that's really gonna come down to
When they're
is,
available.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, the available of our, at the end of the day, our prime candidate, what their availability is and how we can parse that. If somebody says, I can't start for 6 months, I guess we're gonna have to move on.
Yeah, sure.
So, all right. Let's move on. Everybody had a chance to review the monthly financials, abstract vouchers thereof.
Yes.
Questions or concerns regarding the same?
I'm here.
All right, somebody offer a motion to approve the monthly financials as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Made, seconded, further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Trustee concerns, any trustee concerns this evening that we haven't already expressed?
None here.
None.
I like that word, none. Okay, public comment. We've had, public watching us for, my apologies, 2 hours. This is a long one. I've managed to parse them down to an hour and under most times. But I have seen no, public comment on this thread. Anything that you've seen, Sean?
No.
Okay. I do appreciate the participation of the public. I see people in and out, and but we have a pretty good participation rate and hundreds of people that view it after the fact. So thank you for staying connected and staying up to date with everything going on in our village and sometimes even community-wide. Again, anything else from the board? Great. Would somebody like to offer a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
I'll second that.
Made, seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody. Thanks to the, thank you to all of our board members for everything you do. Good night.
Night, Ryan.
Good night. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.